Hello and welcome to the Coming Conflict on March 14th, 2023. My name is Tom, of course, and today we're going to be following up on the last video regarding the consolidation of power into the hands of a few major banks. So let's get right into this. So in the last video, if you remember, we talked about how this bank run would precipitate a run on deposits into bigger banks in the Fed, and then a run on the stocks into the bigger banks. And that seems to be exactly what's happening, as all of the banks we talked about in the last video, those 10 banks, have seemed somehow, these stocks have found a buyer. And I wonder who they could be. I'm assuming, without any real data, I'm guessing it's the big banks, because who else is swooping in to pick these banks up that were cratering 50, 60, 70% only yesterday to be up again 50, 60, 70% up today. And that seems to be some other people's opinions, as these too big to fail banks flooded with deposits as bank run drains small banks of cash. So what's happening right now is these small banks, these regional banks we were talking about in the last video, the depositors, the regular folks, the business owners are saying, hey, wait a second, this isn't a safe place for my money. So let's go move it over to Wells Fargo. Let's go move it to JP Morgan. Let's move it to Bank of America, whatever the big banks are. So the big banks, I think JP Morgan made something like $2 billion today. So I'm pretty sure we got that one right. We saw that one coming. But on top of that, the bank stocks are way up today, like I had just mentioned. So the buyer, I'm going to assume, until I'm presented with evidence to the contrary, that it's the big banks buying up the stocks as well. So not only do they get their customers, they get the banks themselves. Charles Schwab, CEO, says firm is seeing significant inflows and that he bought the stock Tuesday. Well, look at that. This couldn't have been coordinated, right? This couldn't have been somehow coordinated to make the rich richer, the poor poorer, consolidate power into the hands of the few, and then eventually enslave us? That's my guess. But let's go through the news. Senator Warren, our favorite Indian, has called for Powell to recuse himself from the investigation of Silicon Valley Bank and how it failed. Now, that's interesting because I'm hearing all kinds of stories about the types of entities, individuals, companies that were banking with Silicon Valley Bank. And it's not just tech firms here in America, like I had mentioned in the last video. Again, CCP tech firms, and I'm hearing now that Israeli government and Israeli tech firms were heavily banked with Silicon Valley Bank. And from what I'm hearing is the Fed and the state of California gave Israel, or these Israeli firms, a heads up, and there seems to be $1 billion+ in outflows to these Israeli firms on Thursday before the bank went into receivership on Friday. So that's interesting. So could it be, because Senator Warren has been all over Powell, and Powell's a scumbag. He's a scumbag lawyer. He's not a good guy. Just because Senator Warren hates him and she's a terrible woke nuttard does not make Powell a good guy. But there's a reason that she does not want him anywhere near this investigation. Could it be because even though Powell's not a good guy, he knows that he can't just lie about what could possibly be a crime? I don't know. Time will tell with that. We'll see if Powell actually recuses himself. If he does recuse himself, then he's probably in it up to his eyeballs just with the rest of them. And this again, if you're watching this and you have no context, what is happening right now is the same thing that happened during lockdowns. During the lockdowns for the global health emergency, the China virus, during those lockdowns, what happened was mom and pop stores, restaurants, etc., couldn't afford to take on the cost of keeping their business open with no foot traffic and lockdowns, while the Amazons and the Walmarts, etc., got bigger and consolidated more power. And this is exactly what's happening all over again. There's a bank run on deposits, there's a bank run on stocks. It's all getting shifted to the big banks, with the end goal, of course, being this central bank digital currency. And I've heard a few people, I've spoken to a few people loosely saying this whole central bank digital currency thing is just a complete nut job conspiracy theory. So I just wanted to bring it up here for you. This is the Federal Reserve's website, and it says it right here. It talks about it. So it's not a conspiracy. This is something they're doing. It's something they're investigating. Now, I just mentioned how the banking stocks rebounded. The whole stock market as a whole rebounded because what they're expecting is for the Fed to pivot and inject more money into the system. And like I've mentioned before, I'm not a finance guy. I'm more of a politics guy. But the sum and substance of it, is because the interest rate hikes broke the banking system. The stock market is now predicting that the Fed is going to have to start putting money back into the system and lowering or at least stop raising rates. That's why the stock market shot up today after crashing yesterday. But what I didn't expect, I thought when the stock market went up, gold, silver, and Bitcoin would also go down, like a reverse correlation. But what happened is gold, it went down a little bit, but it's way up from the beginning of this banking crisis. Same thing with silver. It's way up since the beginning of this banking crisis. You can see this here. And it's actually even up on the day. Bitcoin is up like 20, what does this article say? 21%. 21%. What that means to me is maybe people aren't taking the bait. Maybe people are just saying, I don't trust this banking system. And this is something we've talked a lot about in this channel, is we're living in the era of zero trust. And the ultimate form of trust in society is the currency. The only way these banks can consolidate power is if the society remains confident and trusting in the currency. What I'm seeing right now with the fact that Bitcoin, gold are skyrocketing, it means that there is still a lot of distrust in the system because bond prices are also dropping. So that's the other thing. People don't trust government securities. They trust gold and silver and Bitcoin over that. So this is a weird dynamic that's playing out. And all the while that this is happening, don't think for a second that the rest of the world isn't observing it, because Moody's, which is a big company that does like credit ratings for businesses and banks, they downgraded the entire U.S. banking system to negative. That happened to SVB right before they collapsed. It's also happening to Credit Suisse right now. So as we're dealing with what could be a major financial meltdown, and just because things have seemingly calmed down right now doesn't mean they've gone away. In 2008, it was the same thing. There was this big event, and then it took about 2 months for it to process through the system. So just remember, just because the story goes away doesn't mean the event isn't still brewing. It's a time bomb. It's waiting. And other countries see this. This is why we have Russia today knocking a Reaper drone out of the sky in the Black Sea. The story basically goes, there was a Reaper drone in the Black Sea, transponder off, a couple Russian MiGs tapped it, hit the propellers, downed it in the Black Sea. And this is the thing. This is the whole thing. As our betters, our ruling class, our elite are playing these games in order to enslave us and the rest of the Western world, the rest of the world is looking at us and saying, well, what a better time to start moving in and taking America out. Let's knock America off its perch. Because I'm going to tell you what. Do you think Russia would have downed a Reaper drone under Donald Trump? Hell no, they would not have. Hell no, they would not have done that. They see weakness. They will pounce on weakness. And that's the whole thing. Like I just said, that's the whole thing. While we're sitting here with a possible lit fuse on a bomb of a financial crisis, do you think that China or Russia are going to be kind to us with their BRICS currency and say, this is the fair world order? This is the fair world order. No, not for a second. Never going to happen. There's not a country in the history of the world, including the United States, that has done things benevolently. If we do not get this together domestically and rein in this Ukraine situation, we are facing some serious dark times. If this CBDC takes hold, it's a digital gulag. We'll be digital serfs in a digital gulag. And if this Ukraine thing, we don't cool it down, it could be World War III, which is even worse. And if you think for a second that Russia's just going to pack up their toys and go home, Russia is fighting for its very existence, says Putin. No crap. We're playing games in faraway lands for special interests, the special interests of a corrupt president here at home, while Russia is fighting for its very existence. NATO needs to pull out of Russia. Biden needs to be impeached. The Fed needs to be audited. And we, as Americans, need to take back our society. Now, that is all pie in the sky at this point. And I know just as much as you do that none of those things are ever going to happen. What's more likely is we're going to face a banking collapse. We might face a war. But at the end of the day, you, me, your family, mine, the people you love, the people I love, all that matters is you're prepared. You're ready. Because when this collapse happens, there's going to be great opportunities. There's going to be great opportunities for the citizenry to buy back what was stolen from them. Stolen them from them through fiat currency and endless wars and money printing. There's going to be opportunities. If you position yourself now, when the opportunity arises, you can buy back a piece of our homeland. And I hope we all can do that. Just wishful thinking, maybe. Or maybe it's the positivity we all need in these most desperate of times. If you're watching this on YouTube, please follow me on Rumble. And if you're watching this on Rumble, please follow me on YouTube. Leave me a thumbs up, a Rumble, a like, a comment. Share it. Get it out there for me. Because in the info war, knowledge is power. Awareness is victory. Thank you very much, guys. You have a great night.